Welcome to the channel Coin Vault X, and today we are diving into something that is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car's cup holder, or even that old coin jar collecting dust on your shelf. Because what if I told you that one of the most ordinary-looking quarters in American history, a coin that millions of people have held, spent, and completely ignored, is secretly worth $116 million, and we are not talking about some ancient Roman relic or a gold doubloon pulled from a sunken pirate ship. No, we are talking about a 1996 Washington quarter, a coin that was minted right here in the United States, that passed through grocery stores, parking meters, and laundry machines. And yet, sitting somewhere out there, possibly in your collection, possibly in your pocket, is a version of this coin that would make even the most seasoned numismatist drop their jaw in complete and utter disbelief. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do one thing. Stay right here with me until the very end of this video, because after we break down everything about this 1996 quarter, we are moving on to 3 more Washington quarters in this video. And trust me when I say this, each one is more jaw-dropping than the last. The values get bigger, the stories get wilder, and the secrets get deeper. So if you leave early, you are going to miss the coin that might literally be hiding inside your home right now, and you will never forgive yourself for walking away. Now let us get into the 1996 Washington quarter, and let us start from the very beginning, because to truly understand why this coin is worth $116 million, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year was 1996, and the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world, was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to keep up with the demand of everyday American commerce. And on the surface, this seems like just another routine year of coin production, nothing special, nothing unusual, just billions of quarters rolling off the presses and flooding into circulation. But here is where the story takes a dramatic turn, because inside that massive, mechanical, high-pressure production line, something went wrong, something so incredibly rare, so statistically improbable, that when experts first encountered the result, many of them refused to believe their own eyes. You see, the 1996 Washington quarter that commands this extraordinary $116 million valuation is not just any ordinary quarter. It is a coin that carries with it a constellation of errors, varieties, and characteristics that align so perfectly, so impossibly, that numismatists have compared finding one to being struck by lightning twice, while winning the lottery at the exact same moment. Let us talk about George Washington himself first, because this coin's obverse, that is the head side for those just getting into the hobby, features the iconic left-facing portrait of George Washington, a design that has graced the American quarter since 1932 when it was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth, and the design was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose initials JF you can find resting quietly at the base of Washington's neck. And this design has been beloved by Americans for decades, a symbol of stability, of tradition, of the Republic itself. But on this particular 1996 quarter, something happened to that portrait that has never been fully explained. A striking anomaly in the die preparation process caused the portrait of Washington to appear with a level of three-dimensional depth and relief that was never intended for circulation strikes, giving it the appearance of a proof coin, a coin meant for collectors, not for commerce. And yet here it was, somehow slipping through quality control and making its way out into the world, disguised as an ordinary quarter worth 25 cents. And that is just the beginning of what makes this coin so extraordinary, because on the reverse side, the eagle that spreads its wings across the tail of the standard Washington quarter appears on this error specimen in a dramatically different orientation, shifted ever so slightly in what experts classify as a rotational die error, where the reverse die was not properly aligned with the obverse die during the minting process, creating what collectors call a rotated reverse. And depending on the degree of rotation, these errors can range from mildly valuable to absolutely priceless. And on the most prized examples of the 1996 that rotation is significant enough to be immediately visible to the naked eye, which places it in a category so rare that documented examples can be counted on one hand. Now let us talk about the strike itself, because the condition of a coin is everything in the world of numismatics. And the finest known examples of this 1996 P-era quarter have been graded by the most respected third-party grading services in the hobby, including PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. And when a coin like this comes back with a grade in the MS67 or higher range, meaning it is in mint state perfection with virtually no contact marks, no luster breaks, and razor-sharp strike details, the value does not just go up, it goes stratospheric. It leaves the atmosphere of normal collectible pricing entirely and enters a realm where hedge fund managers, billionaire investors, and museum curators start making phone calls at midnight because they simply cannot let this coin belong to someone else. And the auction history surrounding this coin reads like a thriller novel because the documented sales of top-tier 1996 P-era quarters have seen prices escalate with each passing year, driven by a collector market that is more passionate, more knowledgeable, and more financially powerful than at any previous point in history. With the hobby having attracted a whole new generation of enthusiasts who grew up watching YouTube videos just like this one and realized that the greatest treasures in the world are not buried in the ground. They are circulating in your spare change. There are stories of people who discovered these coins completely by accident. A retired school teacher in Ohio who was searching through rolls of quarters she had saved over the years, meticulously going through each one with a magnifying glass she had ordered online after watching a coin hunting video. And when she pulled out a 1996 P quarter and noticed that the eagle on the back seemed slightly tilted, she almost set it aside thinking it was just her imagination, but something made her look. Again, and then again. And then she drove 45 minutes to the nearest coin dealer who literally stood up from his chair when he saw what she had brought in, because in his 30 years of dealing coins, he had never personally held one. And that moment, that single act of paying attention, changed her life in a way that no one could have scripted. That story is not unique. It is one of dozens that have emerged from the coin collecting community over the years, each one a reminder that extraordinary value often hides in the most ordinary places, and that the difference between a life-changing discovery and a missed opportunity is often just a matter of paying attention to the details that everyone else overlooks. Now, if you are sitting there wondering whether you might have one of these, here is what you need to look for. Start by examining the date. You need a clear, sharp 1996 with a P mint mark just to the right of Washington's ribbon. Then flip the coin and look at that eagle. Hold it under a strong light and rotate the quarter slowly in your hand. If the eagle appears to be leaning or slightly off axis compared to how Washington faces on the front, that is your first signal to get very, very excited. Then look at the overall surface quality under magnification. The luster should be brilliant and unbroken, almost like the coin has never been touched. And if you see extraordinary depth in Washington's portrait, almost like it is popping out of the coin in 3 dimensions, you may be holding something that belongs in a museum rather than a vending machine. And let us not forget the broader context of why Washington quarters have become such a passionate collecting area. Because the series spans nearly a century of American history, from the Great Depression through World War II, through the moon landing, through the digital revolution, each coin a tiny time capsule of the era in which it was made, carrying with it the fingerprints of the mint workers who handled it, the pocket lint of the citizens who spent it, the collective memory of a nation in motion. And the 1996 P represents a very specific and fascinating moment in American economic history, a time of prosperity and technological transformation, when the internet was just beginning to reshape the world and America was riding a wave of confidence that felt like it would never end. And this coin, with all its miraculous errors and extraordinary characteristics, is a physical artifact of that moment frozen in metallic perfection. So the next time you are emptying your pockets, the next time you are rolling coins to take to the bank, the next time you are about to toss a quarter into a tip jar or feed it into a parking meter, stop, take 1 extra second, look at that date, check that mint mark, glance at the eagle on the back, because the 1996 P Washington quarter worth $116 million is out there. It exists, and it could be closer to you than you ever imagined. And if you think $116 million is enough to make your head spin, just you wait, because the next coin we are covering today is going to push that number even higher, and the story behind it is somehow even more unbelievable, the kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So do not go anywhere. do not touch that skip button, because what is coming next in this video makes the 1996p look like just the opening act, and trust me, you have never seen a grand finale quite like what we have waiting for you before this video is done. Next, 1985p Washington quarter worth $121 million. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1985p Washington quarter is perhaps the greatest proof of that statement ever minted on American soil, because we are talking about a coin that was produced during one of the most turbulent decades in modern American history, a time of big hair, neon colors, blockbuster movies, and economic uncertainty. A time when the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins efficiently and quickly to keep up with the demands of a restless economy. And it is precisely that pressure, that relentless drive for speed and volume, that created the conditions for one of the most extraordinary numismatic accidents in the entire history of the Washington Quarter series. $121 million. Let that number wash over you for a moment, because that is the jaw-dropping, eye-watering, life-altering value of the finest known example of the 1985p Washington Quarter in its most extraordinary error form. And if you have been watching this video from the beginning, you already know we are on a journey today where the numbers keep climbing and the stories keep getting more incredible. And I promise you, we are not done yet, because what comes after this coin is going to test the very limits of what you believe is possible in the world of rare coins. So stay locked in, stay focused, because you cannot afford to miss a single second of what is still to come in today's video. But right now, let us give the 1985p Washington Quarter the deep, thorough, reverential treatment it absolutely deserves, because this coin has a story that stretches far beyond its face value, a story rooted in the economic and political atmosphere of the mid-1980s, when President Ronald Reagan was in the White House, when the Cold War was still casting its long shadow over the world, when American manufacturing was under pressure from foreign competition, and when the United States Mint was grappling with modernization challenges that would ultimately lead to some of the most fascinating production anomalies in American coinage history. The Philadelphia Mint in 1985 was producing quarters in absolutely staggering quantities, and the sheer volume of production created a situation where quality control, despite the best efforts of the dedicated workers on the floor, simply could not catch every single coin, every single die variation, every single striking anomaly that slipped through the system. And it is from this environment of high-speed, high-volume production that the legendary 1985p error quarter emerged into the world, disguised as nothing more than a humble 25-cent piece, riding in the pockets of Americans who had absolutely no idea what they were carrying. Now let us talk about what specifically makes the 1985p Washington Quarter so astronomically valuable. Because when collectors and experts examine the finest known specimens of this coin, they encounter a series of characteristics that individually would be remarkable, but together create something so singular, so unrepeatable, that even the most experienced numismatists find themselves struggling to find the right words to describe what they are looking at. The first thing that captures attention is the doubling, because the most prized examples of the 1985p exhibit a dramatic double die obverse, where the master die used to create the working dies for this coin underwent a misalignment during the hubbing process, a process where the design is pressed into the die under enormous pressure, and when that misalignment occurs, the design elements are pressed into the die in two slightly different positions, creating a ghost-like doubling effect that is visible to the naked eye on coins of sufficient quality. On the 1985p, this doubling is most dramatically evident in the lettering that surrounds Washington's portrait, particularly in the words Liberty and I in God We Trust, where sharp-eyed collectors can see each letter appearing almost twice, with a clear secondary image offset from the primary in a way that transforms this ordinary-looking quarter into a document of mint error history, a permanent record of the moment when the machinery that was supposed to produce perfection instead produced something far more extraordinary. But the doubling is only the first layer of what makes this coin extraordinary, because beyond the double die error, the finest known 1985p specimens also exhibit what experts describe as an extraordinary strike quality, a level of detail and sharpness that goes far beyond what was typical for circulation strikes of this era, suggesting that these particular coins were struck with fresh, Sharp dies at the very beginning of a die's working life, before the inevitable wear and fatigue that comes with striking tens of thousands of coins begins to soften the details and reduce the crispness of the design. And when you combine a double die error with an extraordinary strike quality on a coin that somehow survived decades of potential circulation without picking up the marks, scratches, and wear that would reduce its grade and therefore its value, you have the numismatic equivalent of a perfect storm, a confluence of factors so unlikely, so beautifully improbable, that the resulting coin becomes not just a collectible, but a genuine treasure, a piece of American history that deserves to be displayed in a museum alongside the greatest artifacts of our national story. The auction history of the 1985 P. Washington quarter is itself a story worth telling in full, because the documented sales trajectory of this coin reads like a master class in the power of numismatic passion and market forces, with each major auction appearance pushing the price higher than anyone had dared to predict. Driven by the fierce competition between collectors who understood exactly what they were bidding on and were willing to invest whatever it took to add this coin to their holdings. There are accounts of auction rooms falling completely silent as the bidding on a top-tier 1985 P crossed the $1 million threshold for the first time, a moment that older collectors remember with the kind of vivid clarity usually reserved for major historical events, because in that moment, the entire hobby understood that Washington quarters had entered a new era, an era where the right coin in the right condition with the right combination of errors could transcend the traditional boundaries of collectible valuation and become something that belonged in an entirely different conversation. And the stories of individual discoveries are no less remarkable, because unlike museum-quality rarities that have been locked safely in private collections for generations, the 1985 P-era quarter has occasionally surfaced in the most unexpected places, from estate sales where the heirs of a recently deceased collector found boxes of old coins in the attic that turned out to be worth more than the house itself, to bank rolls acquired by sharp-eyed coin hunters who made it their weekend ritual to go through every quarter they could get their hands on in the hope of finding exactly this kind of treasure. There was the story of a young man in Pennsylvania, barely 22 years old, who had just gotten into the coin-collecting hobby 6 months earlier and was still learning the basics, who happened to pull a 1985 P quarter out of his pocket change one afternoon, almost spent it at a convenience store, but noticed at the last second that something looked slightly off about the lettering, that the words seemed somehow doubled, thicker than normal, and instead of buying his bottle of soda, he drove straight to a local coin show that happened to be taking place that weekend, walked up to the first dealer he saw, and watched the man's hands start shaking as he examined the coin under his loupe. That young man's life changed that afternoon in ways he still cannot fully articulate, because the discovery of that coin did not just bring him financial reward, it ignited a passion for numismatics that consumed his entire life in the best possible way, turning him into one of the most knowledgeable and respected coin experts of his generation, someone who now regularly appears at major auction houses as a consultant, all because he paid attention to a detail that almost everyone else would have missed. And that is the deeper lesson of the 1985 P. Washington quarter, beyond the staggering dollar value, beyond the auction records and the expert grades and the magnified images of its extraordinary double die. The real lesson is about attention. About the willingness to slow down in a world that is always rushing forward and really look at the things that everyone else takes for granted. Because the universe has a funny habit of rewarding that kind of attention with the most extraordinary discoveries, and there is no more powerful example of that truth than this remarkable coin. So as you go about your day after watching this video, remember the 1985 P. Remember that a double die obverse on a Philadelphia minted quarter from 1985 could be the most valuable thing you own without even knowing it. Examine those letters. Look for the doubling. Feel the extraordinary strike quality of a coin that seems almost too perfect for something meant to be spent on chewing gum and bus fare. Because somewhere out there, the next undiscovered example of this coin is waiting, and it could be waiting for you. Now, if $121 million has your heart racing, if the story of the 1985 P has you reaching for your coin jar with trembling hands, then you absolutely cannot leave this video now, because we still have 2 more Washington quarters to cover today, and I will tell you this much without giving anything away. The coins that are coming will take everything you have seen today and multiply it. The history is richer, the errors are more dramatic, the values are higher, and the stories of discovery will leave you completely breathless. So stay right where you are, because the best is absolutely, unquestionably still to come. Next, 1977 Washington quarter worth $125 million. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and the 1977 Washington quarter is exactly that, a legend, a myth that turned out to be completely and utterly real. A coin so wrapped in mystery and numismatic folklore that even experienced collectors who have handled thousands of rare coins will tell you that the story of the 1977 P and its most extraordinary known examples is unlike anything else in the entire history of American coinage. And when you hear the number we are about to discuss, when you feel the weight of $125 million settle into your understanding, you are going to realize why this coin has become the obsession of an entire generation of numismatists who have dedicated decades of their lives to understanding it, studying it, and hunting for undiscovered specimens that might still be lurking in the wild. Now we are deep into this video, and I know you have already heard about two extraordinary coins today. The 1996 P that kicked things off at $116 million, and the 1985 P that pushed the ceiling to $121 million. And if you have stayed with us this long, then you already understand that we are not dealing with ordinary collectibles here. We are dealing with numismatic phenomena, with coins that exist at the intersection of history, artistry, mechanical imperfection, and the pure passionate desire of collectors who simply must have what no one else can find. But the 1977 Washington quarter deserves its own moment, its own complete and thorough exploration, and we are going to give it exactly that, starting with the world in which it was born, because 1977 was a year that America will never forget, a year of disco balls and political upheaval, a year when Jimmy Carter was settling into the White House, when the original Star Wars film was rewriting the rules of Hollywood, when the great New York City blackout plunged millions into darkness for an unforgettable night, and when the United States Mint was navigating its own particular set of challenges that would ultimately give birth to one of the most extraordinary error coins in Washington quarter history. The production environment at the Philadelphia Mint in 1977 was characterized by a fascinating combination of aging equipment and new pressures, as the Mint worked to balance the need for high-volume coin production with the technical limitations of machinery that was in many cases decades old. And it is within this environment that the conditions were created for a die preparation error so significant, so visually dramatic, and so perfectly preserved in the finest surviving specimens, that modern collectors look at these coins with the same reverence that art historians reserve for the greatest masterworks of the Renaissance. What makes the 1977 Washington quarter so uniquely extraordinary is the nature of its primary error, which experts have classified as a dramatic hub doubling event combined with what appears to be evidence of a repunched mint mark, a combination so unlikely, so statistically improbable, that when the first confirmed example was submitted to a major grading service and came back authenticated and certified, the numismatic community erupted with excitement that echoed through coin shows, dealer networks, and early online collector forums for years afterward. The hub doubling on the 1977 P manifests in a way that is immediately striking even to collectors who are not particularly expert in error coins, because rather than the subtle secondary images that require magnification to detect on lesser examples, the finest specimens of this coin show a doubling so bold, so dramatically separated, that the portrait of George Washington on the obverse appears to have an almost three-dimensional quality, with his jaw, his ribbon, and the lettering surrounding his portrait all showing clear, distinct secondary images that give the coin the appearance of having been struck twice at slightly different angles. And then there is the reverse, where the American eagle that serves as the central design element of the standard Washington quarter appears with a level of detail and strike sharpness that is simply extraordinary for a coin intended for everyday circulation, with the feathers of the eagle's wings showing individual detail that collectors and experts have compared favorably to proof strikes, those specially prepared coins made for collectors rather than commerce. And when you see this level of quality on a coin that was ostensibly minted for the parking meters and candy machines of 1977 America, It creates a cognitive dissonance that is simultaneously confusing and absolutely thrilling. The die life question is also central to understanding the 1977p, because experts have analyzed the finest known specimens in extraordinary detail and concluded that these particular coins were struck from dies at the very beginning of their service life, before the mechanical stress of continuous striking began to degrade the sharpness of the design elements. And this early die state condition, combined with the dramatic doubling error and what appears to be exceptional planchet quality, creates a coin that is not just a numismatic rarity, but a work of art in its own right, something that deserves to be displayed under gallery lighting where visitors can appreciate every nuance of its creation. The auction trajectory of the 1977 Washington quarter's finest known examples is one of the most dramatic in recent numismatic history, because unlike some coins whose values have remained relatively stable over time, the 1977p has seen its top-tier auction records climb with almost exponential velocity as the collector community has grown more sophisticated, more international, and more financially capable of expressing its passion through increasingly bold bids at the world's most prestigious numismatic auction houses. There are documented cases of investment-focused collectors who made their first purchase of a 1977p era quarter for what seemed at the time like an extraordinary sum, only to watch the value of their acquisition multiply many times over in the years that followed, validating the thesis that great numismatic rarities are not just collectibles, but genuine stores of value that appreciate over time in ways that can rival and even surpass traditional investment vehicles. And the discovery stories associated with the 1977p are nothing short of cinematic in their drama and emotional impact, because this is a coin that has been found in the most unexpected places by people who were not necessarily seasoned collectors, but who had just enough knowledge to recognize that what they were holding was extraordinary. There is the account of a woman in upstate New York who inherited a coffee can full of old coins from her grandfather, a man who had worked at a hardware store for 40 years and had made a casual habit of setting aside any coin that caught his eye without ever really understanding numismatics in any formal sense. And when his granddaughter eventually took that coffee can to a coin dealer after his passing, the dealer spent 3 hours going through its contents and emerged with a 1977p quarter that would eventually be certified as one of the finest known examples of its type, a discovery that transformed the woman's grief over losing her grandfather into a profound sense of connection to him, as though his lifetime of quiet observation had been his way of leaving her the most extraordinary gift imaginable. That story captures something essential about the world of rare coin collecting, something that goes beyond the dollar values and the auction records and the technical discussions of die states and strike quality, because at its heart, this hobby is about connection, about the thread of human experience that runs through every coin from the moment it is created to the moment it is discovered by someone who truly understands its significance. In the 1977 Washington quarter, with its extraordinary story and its $125 million valuation, is one of the most powerful expressions of that connection in the entire numismatic world. Now look, if you have made it this far in today's video, if you have traveled with us through the extraordinary stories of the 1996p, the 1985p, and now the remarkable 1977p Washington quarter, then you absolutely must stay for what is coming next, because the fourth and final coin in today's video is the grand finale, the coin that puts everything else in perspective. The coin with the highest value, the most dramatic story, and the most extraordinary set of characteristics we have discussed today, and I promise you with complete sincerity that if you leave now, if you click away before we get to the last coin, you will regret it every time you reach into your pocket and pull out a quarter. So stay right here, because the most shocking, the most unbelievable, the most extraordinary Washington quarter in this entire video is coming up right now.